Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at spencerfernando.com. Welcome back to the show, Spencer.
Good to be here.
The latest polls show that if an election was held today, the Conservatives would beat the Liberals. Are you surprised about that, and what do you feel is behind it?
Well, it's a long way off. I'm not too surprised to see Trudeau's numbers have fallen. I think the gap between what he says and then what he ends up actually delivering is starting to grow for people. Obviously the India trip played a big part in it, seeing him really for kind of the buffoon and fool that he is. But I think another thing is the increasingly lecturing tone. I've seen a few people talk about that. Both the lecturing tone from the government, where they're always talking down to people, and really their increasingly dictatorial attitude, where they, whether it's Canada summer jobs, whether it's just how they respond to criticism. Catherine McKenna recently said she has no time for people who disagree with her on climate change or climate policy, and the interviewer, Evan Solomon, had to tell her, well, isn't it your job to have time for people? So I think all those things are really coming together, and people are getting tired of them and looking for an alternative.
Well, you know, whenever we have cabinet ministers saying they don't have time for questions, I mean, it doesn't matter if they like the question or not. That's your job.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think a big problem is, and I think this has been seen with politicians in many parts of the world, but I mean, in democracies, politicians are supposed to be the servants of the people, which means we are really their boss. So we have the right to demand accountability. We have the right to influence what they're doing. And that relationship has been totally twisted around, and especially with Trudeau and many of his ministers. They clearly feel that they're the boss of Canadians, that it's their job to tell people what to do, that we should be lucky to have them leading us, really an arrogant attitude. And I think people, every party has the thing that gets them in trouble. For the NDP, it's being seen as socialist. For the Conservatives, it's when some people, the centrist voters see them as going too far to the right. And for Liberals, it's arrogance. And it's in really record time, Trudeau has really become an extremely arrogant leader.
Well, yeah, we see this attitude from governments that have been in power for a long time. The BC Liberals, who really you should describe as so-called light, they were in power for nearly 2 decades. The Conservatives were in power for a long, long time in Ottawa, and they always get this arrogant attitude. We don't need to talk to you peasants. Why should we take questions from reporters? But it took the Liberal government very little time to take on that attitude. Why is that? Is that because the federal Liberals consider themselves the quote, unquote, natural ruling party of Canada?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think the other issue is that I think Justin Trudeau takes his information from very few sources, and especially the kind of the international press, kind of the elitist, globalist, you could say, kind of mindset. And he doesn't really have any respect for anyone who disagrees. He sees anyone who disagrees with him as old backwards, or they're just a relic of history. And so I think he just assumed that he could really, as long as he spouted off the right politically correct phrases, that he could get away with whatever he wanted behind the scenes. And, I think one big thing that's happening is alternative media is really giving Canadians a chance to get their own opinions out and, connect with people and share with people what's really happening. And it kind of bypasses the filter he was counting on.
Also, one of the problems perhaps is that the staff in the Prime Minister's office is very young and inexperienced. Is he getting bad advice if he's listening to any advice at all? Well,
I think that could be a part of it. I think any staff needs a combination of, you need some young people, especially people who have a good understanding of media, social media, and the way to communicate. But there's also a lot of timeless wisdom that always needs to be remembered by leaders. The problem, if you have too many young people on a staff, is that, and I say this as a young person, it's kind of ironic, but for young people who haven't been around for a long time, everything they experience seems like it's brand new, right? So, oh, this scandal happened, or this issue in the world happened. This is brand new. What do we do? So I think any staff needs a mix of people of different ages. But unfortunately, I think they've talked about how Trudeau has one of the youngest, the entire Trudeau government has among the youngest staffs that have ever been seen, and almost anyone really over 40 doesn't seem too welcome. So there's definitely a lot of life experience that's just being totally wasted.
Does that mean, too, that older Canadians don't understand what's coming out of the Prime Minister's office?
Yeah, I think there's different, not that they wouldn't understand, but it would be communicated in a way that would not be as effective. I mean, to me, it's not Canadians' job to work super hard to understand what the government's doing. I mean, the government should be communicating with everybody in a way that makes it easy for us to know what's going on. But yeah, I mean, the way Trudeau talks, the way he gets his message out really doesn't seem aimed at reaching a large group of people. It's just a very small audience and a very small group of, I guess you could say, opinion elites that he's trying to reach, and he doesn't seem to care too much. I mean, there's a good example. After the hijab hoax, people didn't know it was a hoax at the time, but people had questions. Trudeau commented, minutes, maybe an hour later, made a huge deal of it. It got in the media around the world, and then he used it again as a chance to lecture people. But with there was two churches in Halifax a few days ago on Easter Sunday that were found to have been defaced with anti-Christian graffiti, and Trudeau hasn't said anything about it. So it's very interesting, the contrast. He obviously cares about certain communities and not others.
Is it because he sees votes in those communities?
I think that's a big part of it. He seems to have also a disdain for anything that reminds people of the historic Canada. I mean, Canada has historically been a majority Christian nation. I think it still is, although the demographics are changing. And he seems to have really just a disdain for anything that's not new, shiny, and exciting. And there's a very big difference in how he seems to react towards hatred directed towards the Muslim community, and then hatred directed towards Christian Canadians. And it should be the same. I mean, whether someone's a Muslim Canadian, Christian Canadian, whatever it is, if there's hate, that's not good, and our leaders should be condemning it. But to only condemn when it's one group and then ignore when it's another, that's not acceptable at all.
Was it highly unusual for the opposition? The first thing that they questioned after the federal budget wasn't the federal budget, which we've heard very little about, but was because of the lack of security and allowing a terrorist to be on the dinner list in India.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was good that they asked about that. I mean, that is a big issue, and it's the way Trudeau's handled it has been, really interesting. I mean, he's done everything possible to not ever take any responsibility and blame everybody else. But yeah, the fact that the budget wasn't really a budget it is a problem. It does need to be addressed. I think the CEO of RBC is warning that basically in real time they can see investment fleeing Canada to the United States, and says, he was trying to be careful about it. Corporations have to be careful with what they say about the government, but really he's saying, all the talk about diversity and all that, I mean, that's great, but if you don't have investment, then the country's in big trouble. And yeah, the budget was all about just throwing in the politically correct words. No response to U.S. tax cuts, no response to U.S. deregulation, so, money's going to head south.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after the break.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, here in Vancouver, we're paying the highest gasoline prices in North America, a lot of it due to tax. A bit of it apparently due because they've decided to close all the refineries in the area to make summer gasoline. Or the switchover from winter to summer gas. But with the pipeline debate going on, or should it even be going on? Because we've been told, because some people are saying putting in the second pipeline won't reduce gasoline prices in Vancouver. Others are saying it ships a totally different type of fuel, and the old pipeline, you can put natural gas down it, gasoline, bitumen. It's very versatile. So, yeah, we could get gasoline made in Edmonton.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's if there's more ability to get more supply from Alberta, then it will bring down prices. I mean, there'll be different ways that happens, but it's kind of common sense that if you can bring in more than for the same amount of people using it, the price should somewhat go down. But, I mean, the bigger issue is, I mean, look, think of what other countries must think of Canada. I mean, what country wouldn't give to have the resources that we have? You know, relatively small population compared to the physical size of our country, massive amount of resources, massive amount of oil. And here we are basically, we stop ourselves from using it, then we import it from other parts of the world, especially in the East, we import it. And we're constantly shutting down our own industry. So, I mean, it's foolish. The idea that Vancouver has record high gas prices when it's in a province that's right next door to Alberta with massive oil reserves, I mean, it's total stupidity from our leaders that this has been allowed to happen. And I don't know what it is, but, you know, I think a large part of it is there's definitely an interest on the part of some foreign countries to damage the Canadian energy industry. So certain groups get funding, and then those groups try to, you know, make Canadians hate our own energy industry. And unfortunately, in some cases, it seems like it's worked. I mean, a lot of people really are advocating against the best interests of Canada.
Is it true that a lot of these environmental groups are getting their funding from foreign countries?
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, the Tides Foundation, I believe they get funding from George Soros or from organizations connected to George Soros. You know, there's even talk about how apparently in the last election there was some bot activity trying to, you know, push messages that were against the Canadian oil industry online. So, you know, there's definitely, I mean, I think other countries that produce oil and natural gas have a very clear interest in weakening any competitor. And Canada's letting ourselves be weakened. I mean, we should be pumping out a lot more oil and refining a lot more oil than we are. In the States, a lot of people laugh at Canada because they say, wow, you know, you guys just ship us the oil, we refine it, we sell it for way more. So thanks for the huge profit margin. And this is money that's lost to Canadians, and it's not good at all.
Well, also, too, they criticize tar sands in Canada. What about the oil they produce in Los Angeles? That's from tar as well.
Yeah, it's very selective attacks. I mean, the same people who call themselves, you know, all these left-wing activists who love human rights, they say, they're creating a situation where instead of getting oil from Canada, where we have strong human rights, good workers' rights, respect for the environment. I mean, the oil industry in Canada doesn't get enough credit for an environmental record that really surpasses most other countries. But so instead we get the oil from places like Saudi Arabia, where obviously people are treated horribly, women treated horribly, religious minorities are treated horribly, you know, workers don't have good rights there. So, you know, people who, you know, they say their cause is about one thing, but they really just, they're making the world more in a way that they dislike. And either they don't realize it or they don't care. They're just focused on the goal of wrecking our own industry here.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineer gold mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Remember, we had that filibuster in Parliament with the Conservatives, singing and stomping and whatever, over their lack of a security briefing for all parliamentarians. What's the latest on that?
Well, Scheer said he's going to accept the briefing, and then he wants the unclassified information to be shared also with all Conservative MPs and the media who were at the previous briefing. So we'll see if the government goes along with that. The way I look at it, the Liberals tried to set up a trap for Scheer because I don't think anyone really believes their conspiracy theory about India. But if they get him to go to a classified meeting, then he can't say what he was told in the meeting. So he would be forced to go to the meeting and say, I can't tell you what I was told, which would make him look bad and would give the Liberals cover, even if their story is a total farce. So I think he has to be careful. He's trying to accept the meeting, but also say that all the unclassified material should be shared publicly. We'll see if the government does that, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
What are you hearing about Trudeau and the economy?
Yeah, there's a lot of criticism from people. The big concern really is rising debt and the lack of investment. And what's ironic is even despite all the spending, the Parliamentary budget officer has said that the government has no plan for spending infrastructure money. The first phase of their money, only half of the money has been actually allocated to specific projects. So not only are we incurring a whole bunch of debt, but the money that could have been used for an effective purpose, which is building up infrastructure, is not being used well. Concern about pipelines, obviously. The government claims to support some pipelines, but then they let them get delayed to death, so nothing ever really happens. They changed the environmental regulations, so it's much tougher to get pipelines approved going forward. There's a lot of uncertainty there. No response to what's happening in the U.S. with tax cuts. And, I think investors, they just look in and they say, okay, well, in the U.S., they're cutting taxes and cutting regulations so businesses can do better. In Canada, the government spends their budget talking about gender and diversity and all these nice buzzwords and doesn't actually do anything for the economy. So if you're an investor and you have to pick which country, it's not going to be too tough a choice.
Is the carbon tax a job killer?
For sure. For one, it makes everything more expensive, so it kind of filters out the entire economy, makes it more expensive to do business. And then you compare, again, the comparison to the U.S. The fact that we have one and they don't is a huge problem for us because it just makes it's another way for investors to say, well, which country should we go to? The one with a big carbon tax or the one without? And that's a pretty obvious answer. It's also bad for our domestic economy because it takes more money out of the pockets of consumers, so that damages growth all throughout all our communities and our cities and hurts Canadian businesses. So anyway, it's just bad all around.
Well, the BC NDP government has now admitted that it's no longer revenue neutral. The carbon tax is just a punishing tax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, taxes are never any time a government, if the government really had a revenue neutral policy, then it wouldn't be a tax in the first place. They try to say, we take the money federally and then we give it to the provinces. First of all, that's no guarantee that the provinces give it back to the taxpayers, and most of them don't. So it's only revenue neutral, perhaps from the perspective of a politician, compared, a federal politician giving money to a provincial one. But that doesn't mean it's revenue neutral for most people, taxpayers at all. And it's a scam because anything we do in Canada about emissions gets wiped out totally by what's happening in India and China and other countries that are still drastically increasing their emissions. So why should we wreck our own economy and hurt our own people when it's not going to make a difference anyway? It makes no sense at all.
Plus, we live in the coldest country in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and our forests absorb a bunch of CO2 anyway, so we're probably already carbon neutral, which never really gets talked about. But yeah, it was funny. There was a report, I think the OECD did a report saying, we noticed in Canada that there's a higher average energy usage than in most other industrialized Western countries. Yeah, maybe because we have to use a bunch of energy in the winter to keep everybody alive and keep cars running. How about that? So yeah, just ignorance by the supposedly smart experts who seem to have no idea what's going on.
Is the Trudeau government welcoming potentially dangerous immigrants into Canada?
Yeah, I think talking about the story from Israel, that's an interesting story because Israel is apparently they're looking at suspending that. There's a lot of political debate there because there's about 30-something thousand. I guess they call themselves asylum seekers. Israel is saying that they really came into the country and were supposed to be just kind of passing through. Many of them just trying to stay there now, mostly from Africa. And under the deal, they were going to basically give them UN refugee status, and the UN would decide where to go. Canada apparently said, oh yeah, we'll take a whole bunch of people. Obviously Trudeau never consulted Canadians or asked people about that. Israel's had some concerns about not only security but also economically. They're going to be paying out tons of welfare. So Israel wanted to move most of the people out. The deal would send half of them into the kind of the UN status, and then they'd be filtered out to other countries. There's lots of anger in Israel about the fact that half would be staying there, so that deal may not be going forward. But, I mean, it's still up in the air, and it's still, I mean, the real story is that Canada, without even talking to Canadians, is just apparently said, yeah, we'll accept a whole bunch of people. So it's interesting. Trudeau always finds money for people from foreign countries, but when it comes to our veterans, they're asking for too much, or our seniors are asking for too much, or, First Nations people, oh, sorry, we can't, there's no plumbing for you. So, yeah, the priorities are totally messed up. I mean, the government should be serving Canadians, not other people from other countries.
Is the deep state alive and well in Canada?
Yeah, I think in terms of the idea of entrenched bureaucracy, I mean, if you look at what happened with when Harper was in power, I mean, pretty tough to make lasting conservative changes when the whole bureaucracy is basically left-wing. And I think that's what happened. I mean, look at how quickly Trudeau was able to undo almost everything Harper did. And part of it is because Harper had a minority for a while, only got one majority government, but part of it is that there is a very, I think, entrenched, kind of left-wing, elitist establishment that's always in power. And that would be tough to get rid of. I mean, you'd have to have a conservative government that would go in and just clean house. And it's pretty unlikely there'd be a lot of disruption. It's what should happen, but unlikely that it would happen. And,
is conservative leader is conservative leader Andrew Scheer strong enough to beat Trudeau in the 2019 election?
I think so. I don't know if strong is the right word. I mean, Scheer, he's gotten a little bit tougher lately, which is good. It's always tough for opposition leaders. He's not as tough as Maxime Bernier would have been in terms of articulating really super strong conservative positions. But Scheer, I think he'll surprise people. He's very well read, very smart. So I think he might do better than people expected. The other thing is governments often defeat themselves, right? So if people start to see Trudeau is very arrogant and out of touch, which is definitely happening, Scheer just has to be seen as a plausible alternative. I don't think people are really going to consider Jagmeet Singh, certainly not enough people for him to win. You never know. Politics can be unpredictable. You never say never, but it seems pretty unlikely that Jagmeet Singh is going to do well. So Scheer just has to present a credible plan, seem pretty reasonable, and he could end up winning. The issue for him is going to be that the media will certainly give Trudeau a big assist as the election gets closer. Even if they're somewhat critical now, the coverage will start to shift towards attacking and demonizing the Conservatives. So Scheer's really going to need independent media and alternative media to get the real story out there. Otherwise, it's going to be very tough. There's no Canadian alternative, something like Fox News, which is a very large network that provides a more right-wing slant to kind of balance the left-wing slant in a lot of media. Not really the same thing here, so we'll have to see what happens.
Well, I mean, personally, I saw how Harper treated reporters. Once he was having a photo op during the Olympics in Vancouver, I went into the conference room with a camera, and I was kicked out because I might ask a question. And I don't know, does Trudeau do things like that?
Yeah, he had a fundraiser where the media was supposedly invited to show transparency. Yeah, it was funny. Trudeau went to a $1,500 a plate fundraiser and talked about how he's helping the middle class. Yeah, no one believes that. But yeah, he invited the media and then said, yeah, it's about transparency, but he penned them off in a separate place, didn't let them see most of the event, and then kicked them out so they couldn't even talk to people. So he did just the bare minimum to say the media was there and then didn't let them actually talk to people. So that's interesting. But, yeah, I mean, with Harper, one thing that I always kind of find ironic is he was actually very good in front of the media when he had to be. When he did press conferences or talk to people, you could tell he's a smart guy. But he definitely didn't like doing it, and that definitely hurt him to an extent. People, you look at even the States, people want more openness. They'd rather see someone talking to the media, even if they're attacking them in the course of the conversation back and forth, than avoid them entirely. So, Trudeau's good at looking like he's transparent, not good at actually doing it. And Scheer seems like he's been a little more open than Harper has. So we'll see if that works out for him.
Do you see Andrew Scheer taking selfies with thousands of people during the election campaign like Trudeau did?
Yeah, probably not to the same extent. Scheer might end up being just as popular and more popular than Trudeau, but it's not going to be the same type. It's going to be a lot of people who, conservatives tend to go to events less, protest less, make a big deal of things less, and then they go vote. It's kind of more quiet. With Trudeau, his fans are always out. So, yeah, I think Scheer said he'll take selfies with people when they ask him. Tough to be a politician and refuse to take a selfie over and over again. But I don't think he'll have quite as many opportunities as Trudeau. And I think his image is going to be more about substance than about, just taking photos. He's very well read. I think youngest speaker, or at least, I think he was the youngest speaker in Canadian history. So you have to be very smart to get to that place, and he knows what he's talking about. So we'll see if people go with the substance over Trudeau's style.
Is political corruption illegal in Canada?
Well, technically, it's a funny thing is corruption is illegal in every country officially. There's just a different definition of corruption. So what we may see as corruption in one country isn't corruption in another. I think in Canada, it may not be illegal, but you look at all these offshore tax havens, including ones used by people closely connected to the government and to past PC governments as well. And nothing's being done about that. And they seem to have people, the elites have a lot of influence. They don't ever get dinged by the tax authorities the way the rest of us do. And that's costing us, I think, about $15 billion a year in lost government revenue, which is going to offshore tax havens. And no government really seems to want to do much about that. It wouldn't be too tough. Countries are allowed to say, no citizen's allowed to use an offshore tax haven. No one seems to be doing that. So, yeah, it may not be illegal under the law, but it certainly feels corrupt to me.
Does anyone have the power to charge a sitting prime minister or premier with crimes?
I believe the courts, anyone can be charged with a crime in Canada, so there's nothing stopping. The prime minister's not above the law, not exempt from the law. It's unlikely, though. The thing is, no sitting prime minister, I think, would ever be charged with anything like that, because once it became so clear that they were guilty of something, they would be removed from office by their own party before it got to that place. So, yeah, I think you could see someone who is prime minister start to get in trouble, but they'd probably be removed from office before it ever got to that point.
Spencer, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah, no problem.
My guest has been investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at spencerfernando.com. If you have any questions for Spencer or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.